belief that art and stories have the power to connect us, to help us discover our common humanity across the divides of geography, nationality, race, and religion. Long before I became a writer, I knew one day I would tell my family's story. Even in the midst of that ordeal, as I lost one family member after another, I felt I would have to explain why I, hindered by a physical disability, polio, was still alive when those stronger and healthier, more fit to survive the brutality, had perished. Young as I was, 5 years old when the Khmer Rouge took over Cambodia in 1975, I grappled with the arbitrariness of my survival, even as I couldn't express it. I didn't know why I lived. I was afraid that if I voiced the question, no one would have the answer for me. That the senselessness was just that, senseless and inexplicable. After the regime collapsed in 1979, my mother and I escaped to a refugee camp. One day I faced an immigration officer who sought to question me separately from my mother to establish a coherent narrative of our experience of war and our eligibility for immigration. After the horrors we had lived through, I had lost the ability to communicate even in my own language. If I could not tell my story, the translator explained, my mother and I might never leave that refugee camp, or worse, we could be sent back across the border. When I finally spoke, the story I ended up conveying was not so much about the killing fields, the violence and cruelty we had emerged from, but about the family I had lost. I wanted my listeners to know that even though the rest of my family was not with me, I felt certain that without their love, I wouldn't be alive, wouldn't have had the strength to hang on, the courage to make the escape with my mother. I sensed that while the nightmare we had lived through was incomprehensible, it was possible for my listeners, my questioners, to understand a child's love for her family. That interview not only broke my self-imposed silence, but it opened the possibility that if I spoke of my family in a way that honored their memories, it was all right to speak, to reveal a story. I was not called back for another questioning. Soon after, my mother and I fortunately were granted immigration visas to the United States. I had found that words, the stories we share, could save us. My mother, in a sense, had begun the chronicle of our journey before it was even over. When we arrived in America, there were very few remnants of our life before the Khmer Rouge she retained. A black and white photo of my father from an identity card, a tiny pocket of jewels she had sewn into her clothes, a rice pot, and a small notebook, its pages worn, the writing barely legible. I remember how, fearing Khmer Rouge soldiers and spies, she had written secretly on those pages in the dark of night with a pencil whittled down to nearly nothing. She had written to my father at a time when there was little hope that he could still be alive. If she had been caught reading or writing, it could mean instant death. To mask her intentions, should she be discovered, she included lines of revolutionary rhetoric like this one. Even as I think of you, I always strive to serve the revolution and the organization. I know now the writing sustained her. She couldn't have survived without it. During the Khmer Rouge regime, education was viewed as so dangerous that to be seen with the book was cause for execution. It was the most extreme, most absolute form of censorship. If I had been discovered as a child, knowing how to read and write, I too could have been executed. While the fear of death was overwhelming, the prospect of life without written words, without stories, was also terrifying. Even as books had all but disappeared, I remembered the tales I had read, invoking them when I was scared, when I needed shelter and escape. Sometimes we enter art to hide within it, writes the renowned novelist Michael Ondaatje. It is where we can go to save ourselves. First as a child, then later as an adult, I have often sought the enclosure of art for its comfort and protection. I have slipped into it both to hide and to be rescued. Yet, as I set out to write in the shadow of the banyan, facing the grim reality of this story, that it is rooted in my family suffering, I knew I couldn't ask for the protection of art. To tell the story properly, honestly, it wasn't enough for me to invoke the audio with words alone. I had to relive it. I had to be that child again who stood exposed to the atrocity and destruction, helpless in my inability to prevent the deaths of loved ones. While an estimated 1.7 million Cambodians perished from starvation, disease, forced labor, and systematic executions, I survived. This fact alone I could not escape, whichever way I choose to tell the story, as fiction or autobiography. Yet, even as I chose a fictional landscape with the twists and turns of our journey rearranged, the towns and villages altered and renamed, family members resurrected and imbued with qualities that once new and familiar, I could not veer from the truth of that experience. If anything, I searched for it, hungered for some kind of understanding, some insight into the incomprehensible. I may never find it, I told myself, the answer to the senselessness. But whenever I thought of my father, his determination to meet his demise with dignity, I would console myself with the thought that he had died for some inexpressible truth, some intangible beauty. As a writer, confronting the fact that my life will always be linked to my father's death, I allow myself to believe that some part of me lives and strives now for the beauty he wanted me to see. And however I failed as a child to protect those I loved, perhaps through art, through my endeavor to reach for it, I can make them live again. Writing in the shadow of the banyan, this was my most fundamental intention, to honor the lives that fell victim to the atrocity. I wanted to speak not only of the suffering, but of the beauty and the dignity of those lives. While I was conscious, always conscious, that the context is war and revolution and inhumanity on an epic scale, I longed to convey a world that was deeply personal, deeply cherished. Cambodia before became the killing fields, before all that death and destruction. I wanted to step into that intimate landscape of my childhood again and see it through the eyes of innocence, to note its beauty and magic, to recapture its peace and spirituality, to wonder and to question, as a child often does, at a time when no one quite has the answers, when stories become vehicle of survival. Through Rami, a precocious 7-year-old girl, as my protagonist, I found a way into that world again. Weeks into her journey from the capital city, amidst the mass exodus of a population being forced at gunpoint toward the countryside, Rami and her family arrive at a temple. In this passage I'm about to read to you, her father, a poet, speaks to her in a moment of quiet, preparing her for the chaos and destruction to come.